The Walt Disney Company and Comcast have not come to an agreement on Hulu. Disney wants Hulu valued at less than $30 billion, and Comcast wants it valued at more than $40, perhaps even $50 billion. It sounds like they might be going to court. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is avid television watcher, Mr. VashSky. Vash, thank you for being a friend. What have you watched lately on the television?
Acolyte.
That's right.
It's terrible.
No. We want this to be a positive video. Let's talk about something positive, like the fact that Walt Disney might be called into court to admit to their crimes of trying to devalue and overvalue Hulu at the same time. Oh, what a situation. Vash, I don't mean to roll over your feelings there, but we got to get into this. This from the Wall Street Journal by Amal Sharma, Lauren Thomas, and Jessica Tunkel. Here, Disney and Comcast hit impasse on final lap of Hulu negotiations. Companies are discussing a Disney buyout of Comcast's stake in the streaming service with a big valuation gap, and the prospect of a court battle looms. See, I'm not even making it up. It's Wall Street Journal here. They're catching up to me. I'm just joking. The Wall Street Journal's coverage of this stuff is great. Disney and Comcast's NBC Universal have clashed in their negotiations to resolve ownership of Hulu, with a significant disagreement over how to value the streaming service, raising the prospect of a court battle, according to people familiar with the situation. They didn't contact me. No, we're talking about not just people who have studied it, but people who are close to the situation. The Wall Street Journal in the past revealed that Brian Roberts from Comcast thinks that Hulu is worth more like $60 billion. Which would put one third of that closer to $20 billion, maybe even $23 billion for Disney to buy out that final share. Vash, how much have they paid already for this one third of Comcast?
So I think the quoted price was about a little over $8 billion or so for that. And, that's not even taking into account the third stake that they got from Fox and how that's all valued. So the Walt Disney Company has put out quite a bit of change.
Right. As you said, Disney handed over about $8.61 billion. They rounded off a little bit of the amount here. This $27.5 billion valuation, one third of that was about 9.15, and Disney paid 8.61. So there's about 500 million in there that they said, no, Comcast owed us this money, so we're paying this amount, and maybe a little bit more later. That was the narrative that they tried to push before the stockholders meeting. The stock price actually went up when they announced that they were paying almost $9 billion, more than they paid for Pixar, more than they paid for, almost as much as they paid for, no, it's actually more than they paid for Lucasfilm and Marvel combined. Wow, that's a lot to think about. And of course, Comcast wants more than $40 billion in valuation on this. I'm just going to go ahead and point out here, JP Morgan Chase and Morgan Stanley, which are two different banks there. Morgan Stanley being formerly being run by current Disney board member JP Gorman, which no confusion there on JP Gorman being the guy who's running Morgan Stanley, and JP Morgan Chase being run by Jamie Dimon. There's a lot of Jameses in here. That's fascinating to think about as well. As if we couldn't make this any more complicated, having Bob Iger succeeding Bob Chapek, and then Bob Chapek will, of course, succeeding Bob Iger. And then, of course, as we have all these Roberts in here, it's Brian Roberts, who's over there at Comcast, not to mention Brian Ellis, who is in charge of NBC Universal, and Bob Bakish, who has just been fired from Paramount. The list goes on of the Bobs and the Bryans, and it's just beautiful here. I'm going to simplify this. The original valuation process had these two investment banks coming up with a valuation for Hulu. $27.5 billion is the amount that I'm going to say Morgan Stanley came up with that amount, and JP Morgan Chase probably came up with the $40 billion. It does, or more. $40 billion or more likely much more. If these two banks weren't within 10% of each other, which obviously those figures are more than 10% apart, a third bank was going to be called in. And according to this Wall Street Journal article, they have reached that threshold for that additional bank to be brought in. Let's see if it's listed anywhere in here. Yes, RBC is the name of that bank. In this case, RBC will come up with its own independent valuation estimate. Disney's ultimate payment will be determined by averaging that figure with whichever company's estimate is closest. So if it is higher than the 40 billion, then they will be averaging the 40 billion with whatever RBC's payment is. If it's closer to that 27.5, then it'll be closer to whatever RBC's payment is there. This is a lot of money when Disney does not have a lot of money. While their streaming service is $14 billion in the hole, they just made $47 million in one quarter in all of this, and they are about to pay, I'm going to say, at least $1 billion for the rest of Hulu here. Now, the other question is whether or not all of them decide to go to court with this. Vash, I'm just going to ask you, what's your quick take here? Do you think that these giant corporations, Comcast being the small one at closer to 150 billion, or Disney closer to that 200, and this varies from day to day how much they are by market cap. Disney used to be closer to that $400 billion mark when Bob Chapek was in charge of it. But now it's down to like $180 billion. It's, well, you hate to see it, don't you? Do you think these companies are going to let these arbitrators determine the value of Hulu? Or do you think that this is going to court?
It's got to go to court. I mean, the valuation difference, the delta here is too large. That's the thing. And NBC, or I should say Comcast, has made multiple accusations, and I believe has taken Disney to court before over this, suggesting that Disney, as a majority stakeholder in Hulu, has been under advertising Hulu overseas, has been underrepresenting Hulu in marketing, advertisements, in pushes for content and so forth. So
right. They haven't even allowed Hulu to be marketed overseas. They have slapped a different name on it and pretended like it's a different product.
Right. And they haven't been putting content on that either. They haven't been doing the things that you would think you would be doing if you wanted to foster this Hulu streaming platform for the masses. And so that's been Comcast's accusation for a while now, and I believe that's accurate. And the reason why they would do that is because obviously they want to undervalue Hulu as much as possible, at least from Disney's standpoint, in order to be able to buy it for pennies on the dollar. And I don't think Comcast is going to be taking a back seat to this. I think they understand what is going on. They understand Disney's game, what they're playing. And yeah, I think court is inevitable, just given the amount of cash that's at issue here. And we know that Brian Roberts, man, that guy loves to muddle in Bob Iger's affairs as much as possible.
He does like to ruin Bob Iger's day. I have to agree there. The thing that I want to point out here is that Brian Roberts is probably the reason that Hulu is valued at what it is valued, because when Disney bought Fox or tried to start to buy Fox, Brian Roberts came in overbid Bob Iger's bid. And then after that, Bob Iger came in with what he considers a knockout blow in order to keep Fox out of Comcast's hands here. So they paid $70 billion for Fox, which they probably should have paid something closer to $40 billion for it. So Brian Roberts is responsible for that. And it sounds like they aren't even going to keep all of those assets. So Brian Roberts is going to be in receipt through Comcast of even more money here. This is an embarrassing situation for Bob Iger, or at least it should be embarrassing if people were actually tracking it. If I were someone like Nelson Peltz, I would be watching this situation very closely. I already know that he is watching it very closely based off of the white papers that they've published. But this to me shows that Bob Iger would rather have the big headlines than the financial discipline to take care of this company. And they aren't going to be doing much with Hulu after they get it, other than slapping the Disney Plus name on it and pretending like Disney Plus is profitable. Hulu is profitable, and if it stops being profitable, it will be because Disney has finally achieved full ownership of it. That being said, we want to throw this to our commenters here. What do you think about this situation? Are you looking forward to Disney going to court over Hulu? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Of course, like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.